All right, bring it on in for a special edition of Beef Up Front here on a Friday evening, a rare show for us. Joe Kometz unable to join the college football picks and preview show this week due to some scheduling conflicts. So we got Nick McClay filling in. And instead of our normal 5-6 games that we break down, there is a ton of good games. And me and Nick were like, there's a couple good games Friday and then a bunch Saturday. So let's go Friday before kickoff, get all our kind of plays out, talk about all these major games. There's probably 8-9 games that intrigue me that I want to hit on. So a lot of good football this weekend, Nick. I don't think we have much plans besides sitting on the couch and watching these games.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I can't wait to just sit here probably tonight, starting tonight with Miami Louisville. We know we have some implications in that game with Miami fans coming right at our throats about our off season and heading into the season opinions on them. So that's going to be one that we need to watch. And then I mean, obviously, Nebraska too coming in tonight. So I think there's a lot to get into just Friday night football, and then tomorrow's slate is amazing. There's a lot of ranked matchups that can really, start, the fall for some teams or really start some momentum heading, towards the end of this year. So I think this is a big week where we really see, who teams are and what they're about and see if they're legit or not. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of games to get into, and I'm just excited for it.
Yeah, you touched on it. We got 5 ranked games tomorrow, starting at noon with LSU and Vanderbilt. But then Louisville, Miami tonight. Probably Miami's toughest game left in the regular season. You would think they're going to be probably double-digit favorites the rest of the way, barring any major injuries. Nebraska, Minnesota. Nebraska's a team that if they take care of business, they're going to be putting themselves in conversation for the playoff. Hell, Minnesota, they're sitting here at 4-2. They win out. Who's to say that they can't be in the mix there for a playoff spot? Georgia Tech, Duke. Georgia Tech has a very nice path to the ACC title game if they get past Duke this week. Oklahoma, South Carolina. Oklahoma coming off their first loss of the season. How does John Mateer look next or in this game this week after what he did last week against Texas and their offense really struggling there? I want to touch on Texas A&M, Arkansas. That's an interesting one because it's a rivalry game. A&M all the way up number 4. Got Ole Miss in Georgia, Texas Tech, Arizona State. Tennessee, Alabama, USC, Notre Dame, Missouri, Auburn, and Utah, BYU. So won't go too deep in every game, but there's a lot to hit on with major playoff implications. Q Freeze, if he loses this game, maybe he gets the James Franklin treatment and gets fired. A lot to get into this week. So we will start with our Miami Hurricanes tonight, Nick. Louisville at 4-1, 1-1 in the ACC, going to number 2 Miami. 5-0, 1-0 in the ACC, and you touched on it. We were very low on this Miami team, but give credit where credit's due. They look pretty good so far. But I'll go back to what I said about them last year, and I had them actually as my national champion last year. Started out the season 9-0 and struggled down the stretch. Mario Cristobal doesn't have his guys ready to go sometimes against some of these inferior opponents. Louisville's not a team that they can sleep on, and Louisville's only lost this to Virginia, and Virginia's looking like a damn good team themselves. So big matchup here tonight. That line has came down. I'm seeing it now at 10.5. I got it at, I think, 12.5 earlier. So money coming in on the Cardinals, Nick. Any chance that they can upset Miami tonight?
Yeah, I saw it as high as 13 straight, and then I saw it down to 11.5. I didn't even know it went down to 10.5. But, like you said, as much as I really hate to say it after how down we were on this team heading into the year, but this team looks legit. This Miami team looks like they could be a national total contender by the end of the year. And, very low on Carson Beck heading into the year, and he's looked like a Heisman. He's looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the country up to this point. And then when you pair that with the receiving duo of Malachi Toney and C.J. Daniels, both players combining for 644 yards and 8 touchdowns, that's pretty impressive on the offensive side of the ball. And then not to mention how insane their defense is, led by Ruben Bain, who could be one of the best players in this upcoming draft, could be one of the top picks in this upcoming draft. But for Louisville, like you said, this isn't a team that you can sleep on. We were very high on this team with Miller Moss, Isaac Brown, and that last loss being in their last game against Virginia in overtime, a really tough game. So if Louisville really wants to make a statement, show why that they can really compete in this conference, it starts here. This would be a huge win for them, it being in Miami, and this is probably Miami's biggest test the rest of the year other than maybe SMU. But Miller Moss and Isaac Brown, as we touched on, they're going to have to be the playmakers in this one, not turn the ball over to this elite Miami defense. Louisville offensive line's going to have a lot they're going to have their hands full in this one. They've struggled this year, 57 pass blocking grade, 52 run blocking grade. So they're going to have to improve that against a tough Miami defense. I think this one's kind of won in the trenches, and I trust Miami a lot more. I think 12.5 is too much in a tough game like this. I think we get a one-score game, so I think Louisville in the points, but I do think Miami comes away with a win here.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I think at the end of the day, Miami does come out with a win. They are coming off a bye as well, so they can use that to their advantage. I think Louisville is coming off a bye.
Yep.
That game against Virginia was 2 weeks ago. So both teams coming off a bye. No real excuses in this one. If Louisville wants to get back into contention for the ACC, this is a must-have game. If Miami loses, they're still going to be, obviously in the mix there. But Miami, I think, has just thus far shown a little bit too much to pick against them. If this game was maybe one of the 2 or 3 last games of the season, maybe I would have a different tune on this one. But I do think Louisville can keep it close for sure. I think coming off this extra rest too, being extra prepared and having a chance to prepare for this Miami team more, they're going to be able to compete, I think, a little bit better. And I've said this about Miami in the past, like they don't have the most intimidating, home field advantage. That I don't think that game is going to be necessarily sold out tonight down in Miami on a Friday night. I feel like on like a Saturday afternoon, they probably get a better crowd just because it's not Friday night in Miami. So could this be a slip-up spot? Like looking at Miami's schedule the rest of the way, you have to think this is the toughest spot left. SMU still on the schedule, but is this the one legit chance that Miami has to get upset? Because if they lose this game, I think they have to win the ACC to get into the playoff. They do own the win over Notre Dame, which will hold some weight. South Florida at the time was 18. They could be a playoff team. But I just think ACC is going to be such a hard league to get 2 bids out of when you have so many good teams at the top in both the SEC and then the Big Ten as well. And maybe even 12 has something to say about that at the end of the day. So just big picture wise, it's just important for Miami to continue to win and take care of business. But for this game, I am going to take Louisville to cover. I think that they're going to be able to keep it close. If I do have one concern about Miami, I think it could be the secondary. And Miller Moss can sling the ball. And Isaac Brown is a really damn good running back as well. What does he look like tonight against this tough Miami defense? But I am going to take Miami to win, Louisville to cover. And I think we see a little bit of a lower scoring game, like 28-20, something like that. So for this sake, have the under in that one. But all eyes are going to be on this Miami team. This is going to be the first time I think all year that I'm actually able to really sit down, watch some play start to finish, and get a good gauge. Is this really a team that can win it all? All right, let's go to the Big Ten now. 8:00 kick on Fox. Number 25, Nebraska. 5-1, 2-1 in the Big Ten. A very doable schedule, I think, going forward. Travel to Minnesota. Could be another slip-up spot here. 4-2, 2-1 in the Big Ten. Nebraska is a 7-point favorite, over under 47.5.
Yeah, I think I'm rolling with Nebraska in this one. I know there's a lot of talk with, the coaching and Matt Rule maybe taking that Penn State job off or see how many phone calls he's gotten. But I think he's the type of coach to kind of, not let that in the locker room. Keep his head down, focus. This Minnesota's team has lost by 13 to Cal, barely beat Rutgers by 3, lost to Ohio State 42-3, and only beat Purdue by 7. So to me, they haven't really shown me too much to believe in. And on the other side, Nebraska opened up against against Cincinnati with a win that's looking pretty good right now. And they only lost by 3, a tough Michigan team, and they just beat another tough Maryland team on the road. So I think I just trust Nebraska overall more than I do Minnesota, even though it's a home game for Minnesota. I think I would just roll with Dylan Raiola, Matt Rule, and trust that. I think Minnesota has beaten Nebraska the last 4 or 5 times that they've played. But give me Nebraska here. I'll go 30-21 Nebraska.
I think Minnesota's a live dog in this one, actually. I think this is a tough spot. Friday night, there are always some weird things happening in college football. Kind of reminds me of that Virginia-Florida State game just a few weeks ago. It's a huge one here for Minnesota. But if Nebraska can find a way to get past Minnesota in this game, look at their schedule, I think there's a legit chance they win out. Yep. Host Northwestern next week should be a win. Versus USC, that's going to be a tough one. Both teams should be ranked, but I think that at home, I would probably lean towards Nebraska in that one. At UCLA, what's UCLA look like by then? Does the interim coach bump go away by then? At Penn State, what does Penn State look like at that point? And then they host Iowa. That's always a tough game, but there's a legit chance that Nebraska's sitting there at 11-1 at the end of the year, and they would be a surefire playoff team and probably in the Big Ten title game, or at least a decent chance at making it to the Big Ten title game at that point. And then when you look at Minnesota as well, kind of what do they have in front of them? At Iowa, that'll be a tough one. Versus Michigan State should be a win. At Oregon, probably chalk that up as a loss. At Northwestern, I'd probably give them a win, and then they host Wisconsin. So you look at Minnesota's schedule too. If they get a win in this one, I think there's a legit chance they go 9-3. So this is not a season ender game for either of these teams, but a real momentum builder towards a very legit chance at making the college football playoff. They win this game. So a huge one in this spot. Really like Minnesota plus the 7.5. I think they could win it outright. But I would just take the 7.5 there in this spot. And I like the over 47.5 as well. When you think Nebraska over the past few years, they haven't really been able to put up much points, but this offense has been hitting overs left and right. I've been betting them pretty much every week this season. So I like Nebraska to win this one in a close one at the end. Could Minnesota win? I think for sure, but I do like Minnesota plus 7.5 for an official play and over 47.5 as well. All right, SEC time. We touched on this game a little bit the other day, Nick, but number 10 LSU at 5-1, 2-1 in the SEC goes to number 17 Vandy, 5-1, 1-1 in the SEC. Vandy, ESPN bet showing as a 1.5 point favorite here, over under 47.5. Earlier in the week when we talked about it, -2.5. Dave Portnoy put $200,000 on Vandy minus 2.5 in this one. Said it's his favorite play so far of the season, I believe. So what are your thoughts on this game? And is LSU going to go and finally make a statement win here, as they've been kind of sleepwalking, I think, through the first half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it earlier in the week, and like you said, the LSU offense have really not been in sync. They look kind of all out of sorts. We touched on it again. Is Garrett Nussmeier hurt? We don't really know. He looks like he's just struggling with throwing the ball and even just going through his progressions. But, heading into the year, I was very high on this LSU team and even higher on Nussmeier, as he was my preseason Heisman. But like we touched on, it just doesn't look right. But on the other side of the ball, that defense is legit, only allowing 12 points per game. And I think, playing against a tough Vandy offense where they can beat you in any way with Diego's legs, with his arm, and even just in the overall run game, they're 28th in rushing grade, 3rd in yards per carry, and 1st in yards before contact. So that rushing game, Harold Perkins with Weeks, they're going to have to step up and kind of contain the legs of Diego and kind of make him beat him with his arm. But, with how Nussmeier has looked, again, not sure if he's battling an injury or he just isn't seeing the field well. I think LSU's defense is probably going to have to win him this game. But on the other side for Vanderbilt, this is a great spot at home, to kind of, make your presence known at the top of the SEC if you really want to have people think that you're legit in this conference. And, although their running game, LSU hasn't looked good to this season, last week had their best running game. So if they can come into this game and get the running game going, that'll open up a lot for Nussmeier. I have, LSU to make the playoffs in the beginning of the year. So I think a little stay away spot for me and just kind of root for LSU to win. But I think as an overall play, I like the under in this one with a tough LSU defense and an offense that really just hasn't figured it out. I like the under in this one.
I'm going to go against you here. I'm going to go with Vandy. I like them at home in this spot. I think that their loss a couple weeks ago to Alabama just goes to say more about Alabama at this stage of the game. I think that Florida State loss might have been actually the best thing that ever happened to that Alabama team, because it really woke them up. And the offensive line in that game for Alabama, I know this is LSU Vandy talk, but the offensive line in that Florida State game for Alabama got absolutely destroyed. And since then, they've been awesome, and Ty Simpson's been able to slice and dice. And so they might be the very well the best team in the SEC, maybe the best team in the country. And Vanderbilt hung with them throughout the game. A late touchdown allowed Alabama to cover in that one. So I really don't think that says a lot. That Vanderbilt's not legit, that they're not a real threat here in the SEC. I wouldn't be surprised if we look up at the end of the season in December and Vanderbilt is in the SEC title game. I do think they're that good. I think Diego Pavia has so much belief from his teammates. Clark Lee has been a great coach for that program. I really like Vandy in this spot. probably the biggest home game for them in quite some time. Really have the chance to, I think, eliminate LSU from any type of contention as well. And you touched on it. There's just something off with this LSU team, this LSU offense. They haven't been able to get going all season. So I really like Vandy at home in this one. Don't know if I would lay the 2.5. I could see them just winning by a point. So maybe eat some juice, take like the -130 money line if it's somewhere in that ballpark. But I really like Vandy to get this one done at home. And make another statement. And I think even go over their season win total. I think it was 5.5 at the beginning of the year. So pretty crazy there for
I
Vanderbilt.
think this is the first time that they're favored in a game in a while, in a long time. I'm not sure the exact number on that, so I don't want to say something that it's wrong, but I think it's been a long time since they've been a favorite in a game.
Yeah, I saw one said 177 games, 177 SEC games. But then I saw someone say like they were favored against Tennessee back in 2018. So one of those things too where depends kind of what line you're looking at. But even if that is the case, that's still seven seasons ago. So big spot here for Vandy. And let's see how they actually play, as the favorite. In a lot of these games that they've been winning with Diego, they've been the dog in it. So all right, let's go to the ACC now. Number 12, Georgia Tech, 6-0, 3-0 in the ACC. They're 2 wins away from hitting their season win total of 7.5. Travel to Duke, 4-2, 3-0 in the ACC. Awesome quarterback matchup here. Kind of polar opposite guys. Darian Mensah, more of a pure quarterback from the pocket, 15 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions in the air. And you got Haynes King, who's just an absolute bulldog, college football, pure quarterback, going to run the ball 20-plus times each and every week. This is an awesome game, Nick, and a great way, I think, to start Saturday.
Yeah, this is one of the best games to start a Saturday. I know you don't really look at Georgia Tech and Duke and see that matchup in football and say, wow, this is going to be a great matchup. But, this game could have huge ACC championship implications here. But for Georgia Tech, if they get past Duke with a win, you look at the rest of the road, it doesn't look that horrible. After this game, they play Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, then finish off with Pitt, who's been playing well. And obviously their toughest test will be Georgia at the end of the year. But like I said, this Georgia Tech can come away. If Georgia Tech can come away with a win here and go into Georgia undefeated, that would be insane for Georgia Tech. And Haynes King has looked really impressive up to this point. 971 passing yards, 72 completion percentage, only 4 passing touchdowns, but has added 444 yards on the ground and 9 rushing touchdowns, which is tied 3rd overall in the country. So that's insane for a quarterback. And if Duke wants to make the ACC title game, it starts tonight. They pretty much need a win out the rest of the year, I'd say, to make a case for that game. And they get a shot here facing a number 12 team in the country at home. So big implications here. I think I'm going to go Georgia Tech here. I just love the way Haynes King is playing football right now. He doesn't force anything. He just kind of lets the game come to him. Like you said, he'll go out there and run the ball 20 times a game if he has to. So give me Georgia Tech 32, Duke 28.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia Tech as well. I think this is a team that has that it factor to them, and this is going to be a tough environment to go to Duke. You said it best. You don't really think much about Duke football, but Manny Diaz has built something really good there off the back of what Mike Elko did, and now you see what Mike Elko's doing at A&M. Some damn good football coaches that have been through this Duke program the past few years, and they've really stabilized it, but it's a Georgia Tech team that kind of has that it factor to them, that identity, that toughness. I think all week they're going to be getting talked about how they're the underdog in this matchup. And it's one of these potential trap spots. Does Vegas know? Maybe. We'll see. But I'm going to go with Haynes King. Brent Key is one of my favorite head coaches. I think any SEC job, any Big Ten job that's above Georgia Tech should be knocking on the door for Brent Key if they decide to move off their head coach. But I'm going to go with Georgia Tech in this one. I really like this ball club, and I think that they could be your ACC champion by season's end. So give me Georgia Tech to win this one outright there on the road. All right, quick hitter on this one. Interested to hear your thoughts. Number 14, Oklahoma, 5-1 and 1-1 in the SEC. At South Carolina, 3-3, 1-3 in the SEC. 12:45 kick on SEC Network. Oklahoma is a 4.5-point favorite here, over under 43.5. We know Oklahoma's offense was terrible last week against Texas. John Mateer all of a sudden goes from Heisman favorite to only having 1,400 yards in the air, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Did he rush back too soon? And, Lenore Sellers, from what I've heard about some of the scouts and analysts, they still love him as a draft prospect. They've seen a lot from him, but kind of everything around him hasn't been that great this year. They haven't really been on TV that much, South Carolina, and both of these teams have super tough schedules going forward. That was the main narrative about them in the off seasons. Like, they could be really good teams, but they just play a tough schedule and a tough opponent, it seems like, each and every week. I feel like this is kind of South Carolina. If you're going to do anything with your season, you need to win this one. And Oklahoma, what are you made of? Are you able to get up off the mat in this matchup?
Yeah, I think like you touched on it very well. Both quarterbacks are a little banged up, and both quarterbacks that we were pretty high on heading into the year. And just the schedules that these guys have faced, it's tough, and what they're going to face is even tougher. So I think in this one, I'm leaning South Carolina. I just like the way, like you said, scouts really like Lenore Sellers. There, he was one of our Heisman picks way before, in the preseason. So if he can, battle or through those injuries. I know Oklahoma has a tough defense, and that really, I think is going to be the way if Oklahoma wants to win. That defense is going to have to step up because I don't know if John Mateer is ready to be back just yet. And if he is, I know he didn't look it last week, but if he can bounce back, I think either way, defense is going to win that game for Oklahoma. But give me South Carolina in a fun game. I think that game's going to be a real fun one to watch.
Yeah, I think South Carolina under Beamer has been good, kind of like when they're back is law. And this feels like one of those spots here where I agree with you. It could be one of the more chaotic games. I think as good as Oklahoma started, like with how tough their schedule is still going forward, with the starting this week, like South Carolina going to there is never an easy task. And after this, they still have Ole Miss, they have Tennessee, at Alabama, versus Missouri, and versus LSU. Like, you're most likely going to be playing a ranked opponent each week the rest of the year. Brent Venables' job is not safe in any regard. And Beamer, like, they didn't really live up to they haven't lived up to the expectations this year. And I think expectations were kind of put to the floor a little bit because of how tough their schedule is. But it's a spot too. It's like the SEC. If Vanderbilt's able to succeed in the conference, you should be able to succeed. I think is the message from ADs now going forward. So I'm going to go with South Carolina too, plus 4.5. Let's see what material looks like. I do like South Carolina to win it outright as well, but I'm going to keep that take those 4.5 points with the South Carolina team. I think it's a lower scoring game as well, like a 23 to 20 type ball game, 21-20, something in that regard. So I think it's a big day here for South Carolina at home. Both defenses come to play in that one. All right, quick hitter here. Number 4, Texas A&M, 6-0, 3-0 in the SEC, goes to Arkansas, 2-4, 0-2 in the SEC. Arkansas has been not very good on defense this year, but they've been able to put up a ton of points. They almost went to Neyland Stadium and knocked off Tennessee last week. This just has the feeling, Nick, of one of those games that we could see an outright upset that no one saw coming. Line's only a 7.5-point favorite in favor of Texas A&M, 58.5 is the total. Any chance the Razorbacks pull off the outright upset in this one?
I think I'm on A&M in this one. I think both these quarterbacks are electric, as you touched on. Both these teams are going to put up points. I just like Texas A&M's defense. I think that they can really. I know Taylor Green is going to get his, but I think they can really contain him. And with both quarterbacks being pretty similar in play style, I think we get a lot of rushing yards, a lot of scrambles. I just like Texas A&M a lot more. Or I guess I trust them a lot more from what we've seen up to this point. Arkansas can be so streaky. I just trust. Marcel Reed and that offense a lot more than I do Taylor Green. So I'm going to stick with A&M. 7 points is a lot in Arkansas. I would maybe try to tease something there, but I do like Texas A&M outright in that one.
I think we got a crazy upset alert in this one, actually. I'm going to go with Taylor Green to kind of put that Superman cape on his back in this one. It's a ballsy pick for sure. And Texas A&M is legit. I really think that they could be one of those teams in like the Final Four by the end of the season. And that shouldn't be that big of a surprise as they sit here at number 4 in the country. But I don't think really Texas A&M's getting much talk, getting much noise about them. I feel like the conversation's all Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon was getting a lot of talk there at the top. Miami certainly in the conversation, Alabama, but A&M sitting here 6-0, 3-0 in the SEC. They take care of business. They're certainly going to be in the playoff, but give me a little bit of chaos in this one. I think Taylor Green has the makings of that guy that could go out there and put up 300, 400 yards in a game. Washington's a really damn good running back for Arkansas. They're able to put up points. If Texas A&M has to get in a shootout in this one, it has to play in the 40s. Can their offense do that? Can their offense go point for point, score for score with this Arkansas team? I'm not sure. So I'm going to go with Arkansas. Definitely like the plus 7.5. I really like the over 58.5. I think we see a shootout somewhere kind of in that 35, 31 ballpark, something like that. But I'm going to go with Arkansas to pull out the outright upset and make the headline win of the day there in the SEC. All right, staying at the 3:30 slot on ABC. Number 5, Ole Miss, 6-0, 3-0 in the SEC. At number 9, Georgia, 5-1, 3-1 in the SEC. Georgia, 7.5-point favorite, over under 57.5. Trinidad Chambliss this time last year playing D2 football. Now he's going down to Athens, Georgia. Can he pull off the upset, Nick?
I think this is a Georgia spot for me. I know, 7.5 is a lot in an SEC game, but I just think at home, I know Georgia lost to Alabama at home, but I don't think they do it. They lose twice at home in the same season. I think this is a team that, I know their defense is not the same Georgia defense that we've been used to, but I still think they have enough to be able to stop Trinidad Chambliss, who was coming off a game where he did not look very good against Washington State. He made a few plays that, were very questionable plays, and asking, why in the world would he ever make them? But, you look at his end stat line, he still went 20 for 29, 253 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a touchdown on the ground as well. So even with how bad, the eye test looked, he still put up the numbers. We touched on it last week or earlier in the week. Georgia's pass rush just isn't the same. They have 6 total sacks on the year, and 5 of them are from linebackers. So this is a game where they're going to have to get, Chambliss, they're going to have to hurry him up and force mistakes. 7.5 is a lot for me, so I may lean that Ole Miss 7.5, but I think Georgia's just, going to stick to their game. And overall, I trust Kirby Smart and Georgia at home than I do Ole Miss. So give me Georgia in this one.
Yeah, it's a spot too where I'm with you. Like, Georgia really dropped 2 straight home games in this one. Like,
that's what I mean.
Another one after having not lost there since, what was it, 2016?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was 2016. Before that Alabama loss. So 7.5 is a lot of points though, and Ole Miss showed the ability to beat Georgia last year. Credit Jackson Dart. It was at Ole Miss. It's a different scenario. And we talked about it earlier this week, where Georgia's just not as intimidating as I think that they once were. Like, before, I'd probably be like, oh, no way, Ole Miss goes there. I do think Ole Miss has a fighting chance in this one. 7.5, I would probably take them to cover that. But I think this game is going to be a stay away for me. Sit back and really see how legit Ole Miss is, how Chambliss looks against Georgia. But I do like Georgia to get the outright win in this one. It could be, if you are looking to, put a parlay in, you like some of these other big favorites at home, maybe take them with take Georgia money line. We'll talk about some of these other games later, but like, if you like Alabama to win, maybe put Bama and Georgia together. Notre Dame's minus 9.5, maybe put those 3. That probably gets you close to even odds if you're riding with the home teams this week. So I like Georgia to win, but nothing really popping off the page there betting wise for me. All right, 4 o'clock on Fox, number 7, Texas Tech. They're another team too, Nick, that season ended today. Are they a team that you would say could win the national title? They've been very impressive. They're at 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. They go to Arizona State, who's 4-2, 2-1 in the Big 12. Sam Leavitt is back for Arizona State. Sounds like they potentially just rested him last week to get him ready for this week. And what is the biggest game of the season for them? If they lose this one, most likely not going to be going to the college football playoff or Big 12 title game. Over-under is 50.5 in this one, Nick. Any chance Arizona State can pull off this outright upset at home?
I don't think so. I've been too high on this Texas Tech defense, and I really wasn't too high on this Texas Tech team heading into this season. I know they, obviously spent the most money in, the transfer portal, but it all still had to come together for me to really believe, and it looks legit. That defense is unbelievable. I think the last 3 weeks I have bet whatever team they're playing, their team total under, and it's just a lock. They do not let up points. So I think in a spot like this, I'm just going to keep riding that. I think I saw it at 11.5. 11.5 seems a little bit too much for me. I don't know if I would lay that. And like you said,
I think it moved because Leavitt
is
going to play
what
now.
I figured. So I think I don't know what I would really lean aside. I just think Texas Tech has way more defensively. I know Jordan Tyson and Sam Leavitt They're probably one of the better quarterback wide receiver duos. Jordan Tyson could be one of the best wide receivers coming out of this class. But I still think that Texas Tech defense is just too legit. It's going to be all over Sam Levitt. Give me Texas Tech in that one.
Yeah, I think just kind of big picture wise too with this Texas Tech team and how good they've been. There's still a lot of ball to be played. But like, how many other donors are looking at like this Texas Tech program and are like, I really love football, and I saw Texas Tech basically went out and bought their entire roster. They put a big infusion of money into it. Like, let me go do that if I'm at, I don't know, say like an SMU or just some other school kind of like mid-tier there. I think that's going to be something to track because we know these big schools are getting their money coming in. But does a team like like a Virginia Tech have a rich alum out there and he's like, you know what, I'm sick of the losing. Let's do this. It's going to be something I think to monitor going forward with these programs. And I think it's pretty cool too. It's like Texas Tech, you're ranting and raving about the defense. It's funny just because it's Texas Tech. Like before, you would have never said that ever. They had Patrick Mahomes throw 80 passes literally one game. So pretty wild there. I do like the Arizona State to cover the 6.5 in this one, though. I think this is their Super Bowl. I think this is the game that I talked about decides their season. Having already lost to Utah, and who was their other loss already in the no, that was against Mississippi State. But anyway, if you lose your second Big 12 game here, I think it's going to be tough with Utah, BYU still in the mix there as well, and it looks like Texas Tech is the front runner right now in the conference. But I like Arizona State to cover the 6.5 in this one, but I do think Texas Tech wins it at the end of the day. Arizona State keeps it close enough, though. Did that number. If you're able to get the 10.5 or 11.5 earlier in the week, good for you. But it's a scenario where I think Arizona State, experienced team, Levitt, Tyson, they're able to just keep it close enough to make this interesting throughout and probably lose by a field goal or so. All right, let's go to nightcap now. The third Saturday in October, you always get Alabama and Tennessee, and another year this year where this is a meaningful matchup. I feel like there were so many years back in like the mid 2010s, late 2010s where this matchup didn't really mean as much because Tennessee wasn't very relevant. But now I think they got a fighter's chance. Number 11 Tennessee at 5-1 goes to Alabama, who's number 6 at 5-1 as well. Tennessee 2-1 in the SEC with that loss to Georgia. Bama 3-0 in the SEC, one loss at a conference to Florida State. Bama's a 7.5 point favorite over under 59.5. Earlier this week when we talked, that was a 9.5 point spread. Do you still think 7.5 is too much points?
Yeah, I mean, like you touched on, we how crazy these SEC lines have, not crazy, but how high these lines have been. You never really see top matchups like this being, over a touchdown line. And it kind of makes sense for it to come down a little bit. I feel like 9.5 was very exaggerated. 7.5, I still kind of like, Tennessee, but I think Alabama outright in this one. They're coming in really hot. Last 3 wins against Missouri, Vanderbilt, and Georgia. And ever since that week 1 game against Florida State, we touched on it. That may have been probably the best thing to happen for Alabama. They've really bounced back and proven to get better every single week. And, for Tennessee, Joey Aguilar, this offense looks really good too up to this point. Both stars of the team are the quarterbacks. Ty Simpson, second in Heisman right now. Aguilar at 35-1. But I think this Alabama offensive line has been unbelievable. You touched on it earlier. They have a top 25 offensive line in pass blocking grade. So they're going to come out against a tough Tennessee defensive front. Their defensive as a whole hasn't been too good, but their defensive front has 26 sacks, second in the country. So to me, this one's one in the trenches with even how good both quarterbacks are. I think, like you said, 9.5 was way too much. 7.5, I kind of lean more a little bit. Obviously, still Tennessee. I think Alabama 38-31. I think we get a high scoring one. And in a week coming out where Ryan Williams didn't do anything last week, I think expect a big bounce back from Ryan Williams and Ty Simpson this week.
Yeah, I like the points in this one as well, Nick. I like this one to be a bit of a shootout. I'd probably say like in that 35-31 mix, something like that. I do like Alabama to win at home, but I like Tennessee to keep it within the 7.5. I like the way Joey Aguilar plays. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he plays like a motivated guy, and he really fits the system well. He's been playing really well. His big issue over his college career has been his interceptions. Still has 5 this year, but I think he's cut back on those a little bit. Brazil is a great receiver there for Tennessee. Those guys can put up some points for sure. So I don't think they go into this Alabama environment necessarily afraid in this one. But we have seen the home team in this matchup kind of dominate this rivalry historically. So I'm going to go with Alabama to win this one, but Tennessee to cover that 7.5 and the over of 59.5. All right, a few more games. Number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame. Listen to a lot of podcasts this week. National guys, they're calling this an elimination game. USC still has some tough games coming up. I think they still have to go to Oregon, I think is still on their schedule. Yeah, they go to Nebraska, and then they go to Oregon as well. So they lose this one. You figure out of those two, if they at best split, they're probably still going 9-3 and not going to the Big Ten title game and not making the playoff most likely. And then when you look at Notre Dame, 3 losses already. Regardless, I don't think they're going, especially with the schedule that they have the rest of the way. So thoughts on this matchup, Nick? Notre Dame's a 9.5-point favorite. I was pretty baffled to see that.
Yeah, these lines are huge this week. Staring at, seeing a ranked game, it being over a touchdown spread seems kind of crazy to me. But obviously, the line makers know what they're doing. But in this one, like you said, huge playoff implications here with Notre Dame already having those 2 losses. I know they're against Miami and A&M, 2 tough teams, but losing a third here could really lessen their hopes at making that college football playoffs. They've, won the last few games in pretty convincing fashion too. So they do have a ton of momentum. Looks like, this is probably going to be Notre Dame's last game against a ranked opponent. They have Pitt, who looks pretty good, but other than that, no really tests after that. And you touched on it. USC has to play Nebraska, Iowa, and Oregon. So a loss here would probably mean they have to maybe win out. I don't think you go in there the playoffs with 3 wins like you touched on. So this would be a huge signature win for USC. And I can only imagine how we are talking about this game if USC finished the job against Illinois and they were undefeated heading into this game. So, a chance here, getting a huge non-conference win, a chance to show kind of the country who you really are. But I think Notre Dame is just too overpowering overall. Another big line, like we talked about it, I'm just not really comfortable, laying the favorite here. So if I had to, I think I would go USC and the points, but Notre Dame win. But I think this is going to be a good wide receiver matchup on both sides. USC and Mekhi Lemon, 2nd receiving yards, 1st in receiving grade, 2nd in yards after catch, and 2nd in forced missed tackles. So I think Notre Dame's going to have their hands full with Malachi Lemon. But either way, I think Notre Dame wins in the end. I do think USC covers that 9.5, though.
Yeah, we talked about how the games this week look, at least on paper, so great, but there's so many big lines in this one. Right. It makes you wonder, are we getting set up for potential trap spot and some blowouts? If all dogs are covering this week, that's going to make for some real interesting conversations and some really awesome games. But I'm kind of worried with these big numbers. Like on paper, it's like, why not take USC? I think they've been very impressive. I think the big thing with USC and Lincoln Riley transitioning into the Big Ten, why I wasn't a big fan of them, they were soft in the Pac-12. Like, how do you expect to come from the Pac-12 and being soft to go into the Big Ten and be able to compete? I thought it would take them a year to do so. And besides that Illinois game, and you touched on it, Nick, they almost came back and won that one. At the end, it's a spot where, okay, you actually go and manhandle Michigan. Why can't you do that against Notre Dame? Why can't you do that against Nebraska or Oregon? I'm not saying you got to manhandle them at the line of scrimmage, but hold your own at least and let your skill guy, which in most games, your wide receiver, your quarterback, your running back, your outside perimeter guys are going to be better than the other teams. Why can't you have a chance in every game? So I think 9.5 is pretty crazy in this one. I'll fall for the trap. I'll take the cheese and take USC in this one. Notre Dame, they've looked good in spurts, but Boise State a couple weeks ago gave them a fight. Obviously, they already have 2 losses. It's not some super dynamic Notre Dame squad that I'm waking up in the middle of the night scared of. Like NC State last week, okay, congrats on that one. Boise State, as I touched on, that one kind of was close early on, and they pulled away late. So I'm going to definitely take USC to cover the 9.5. Who's going to win? I'd probably still go Notre Dame just for the fact that they're at home in this spot, but they felt short before a couple times under Marcus Freeman, whether it was Stanford, I think, Marshall, obviously last year, Northern Illinois. It's not some dynamic home field atmosphere, home field environment. So USC can certainly go in there and pull off the outright. But I do like the over. I think we get a lot of points in this one. I think it's sitting at 62.5 right now. So give me the Trojans to cover and the over 60.5. Yeah, I really like the over. That might be one of my favorite plays of the week, actually. So USC plus 9.5, over 60.5. All right, 2 games I want to hit on left. Number 16, Missouri, 5-1, 1-1 in the SEC at Auburn, who's 3-3, 0-3 in the SEC. Is this a do or die game for Hugh Freeze? Like, Auburn, say what you want about them. That was an impressive week 1 game that they had against Baylor. Feels like a while ago, but they play down to the wire with Oklahoma. They lose by a touchdown. They play down to the wire against A&M. Both games on the road, lose by a touchdown. Last week, they're a controversial call at the goal line away from going up 17-0 on Georgia. They wind up losing that game 20-10. Like, it feels like they're right there. They need that breakthrough game. Is Missouri that spot here at home, Nick? Because going forward at Arkansas, I think they could definitely win that one. Host Kentucky should win that game. At Vandy, let's see what Vandy looks like over the second half of the year. And then they play Mercer before the Iron Bowl. If Auburn can just get a win here, get some confidence, I think there's a chance that they could win out going into the Iron Bowl. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoff, but if they're able to finish 8-4 on the season, I think that's a really good step up for them.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just haven't. I know that these games that they've played against tough teams have been close. It just, if they can't do it now, when are they going to do it? This, like, for both teams here, kind of comes down to how both teams respond to 2 tough losses. Last week, Missouri lost by 3 to Alabama, which they were in it the whole entire way. And like you touched on, all 3 losses. Auburn lost a battle with Georgia, 20-10, blew a 10-point lead, and a lot of calls that didn't go their way. So they were right in it. And, for Missouri, that first loss of the season, first time kind of all year that they really looked at a sink to me. I think this is a game for Auburn where, backs against the wall. Do they have anything to lose at this point? Like this game's at home. If you want to show any type of fight in this conference in the SEC, they're going to have to come out hot in this one. I just don't really trust it with Jackson Arnold. He has never really impressed me. And now he's in a situation where he has one of the better receiving rooms in the country, and yet they still have 3 losses. Now I know, again, we touched on it. 3 losses were tough teams, but you still lost those games. And now I've seen reports where players are reportedly trying to leave the program before the season ends. There's just a lot going on in this Auburn locker room with 3 losses already. They can't really afford to lose another one, especially this one at home. But I think I'm rocking with Missouri here. This Missouri team, great running game, one of the best running backs in the entire country. We touched on it before. Ahmad Hardy, 783 rushing yards, 2nd in the nation, 9 touchdowns, 3rd in the nation. And you add the running game of Bo Pribula too. He's also started out hot, kind of cooled off since then. But I think I just trust Missouri as a whole. Then I trust Auburn right now and Hugh Freeze. Give me Missouri 31-24. But like you said, this is a game where Auburn needs to win. Hugh Freeze needs to win to keep that job.
Yeah, that's why I'm going with Auburn in this one. I very well could see Auburn moving off Hugh Freeze if they lose this game, if his players want to play for him at all, if the program has any pulse left, they find a way to get this one done. And I think Missouri is a little bit overvalued. You look at their wins. Central Arkansas, Kansas, that Kansas game, Kansas was in control for a lot of it. Mizzou, credit to them, comes back. Louisiana, blowout win. South Carolina, okay, nice win there at home. Yeah. And then UMass, like, have they really beaten anyone, or are really they that good? Going to Auburn, and the coaches say it all the time, like, Auburn is – the record might not reflect it, but the environment at Jordan-Hare that is known for being the toughest environment in all of college football. So I'm going to give Auburn the benefit of the doubt this one at home, last-ditch effort here in this spot. Shout out to the defense. The defense has been incredible all season. They've been an under machine this year as well. But I'm going to give Auburn benefit of the doubt, last-ditch effort here at home, outright there on the money line. Give me the Tigers there at home at Jordan-Hare. All right, last game of the week to wrap up the night. And I thought this game would be a little bit later. I think I saw it's only at 8 o'clock.
8, yep.
Yeah, you would think this one would be like a 10:30 kickoff or something, but big noon kickoff out to the Holy War for number 23 Utah at 5-1, 2-1 in the Big 12. At number 15 BYU, 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. Utah, though, a 3.5-point favorite here. It says on the road. That is the first time I've seen that this week. That's eye-opening. Over under 49.5, Nick. Any reason there you think that Utah's the favorite here on the road?
Honestly, I I don't really know. I saw earlier in the week, and I don't think it moved that much. I'll be honest. I think it was at 3.5 to start. I might be wrong on that, but I think in this one, since we've been so high on this Utah team, I'm going to stick with Utah here. This is the first time that these two teams have matched up against each other in 16 years. In the last 16 years, I'm sorry, that both teams are ranked and playing each other. So that these two teams are just one of the teams that are just bruisers. They'll go out there and bruise their way to death and just gut out a win. For BYU, they're the only other undefeated team in the Big 12 other than Texas Tech. They've beaten Colorado, West Virginia, and Arizona in their last 3 games. But Bear Bachmeier, true freshman, coming in, leading a Big 12 team to 6-0 as a true freshman. That's something that is very impressive to me. But for me, I think in a high intensity type of game with a defense, you're facing a Utah defense, very physical game here. I think you're going to win it in the trenches, and Utah has one of the best offensive lines in the country. First in sacks allowed, second in pressure allowed, and fourth in pass blocking grade. And BYU's pass rushing grade is not that good. So I think if they give Dampier time to do damage, he's going to go out there and beat you. He's going to go out there and be the reason that Utah wins this game. So I'm going to continue to back Utah. Give me Utah 24, BYU 17 here.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple in this one. You touched on it. Rivalry game, 2 physical teams. I think that's both of their kind of identities. I like the under 49.5. I think this one is potentially played in like the low 30s. Like we get a, I don't know, 17-14 type of ball game or something. This is a very weird spread to me. Like I feel like it's screaming Utah's going to win this game and dominate this game. But, just the home crowd environment, BYU being pretty impressive themselves thus far. Like, why wouldn't I take that plus 3.5 at home as well? So that's going to just be a stay away for me. Very head scratching line, but really like the under of 49.5. I think these two teams keep it low scoring, both really physical. We see a run heavy attack and 2 teams that pure hatred towards each other. I don't think you really see in those type of games much explosive play. So give me the under there of 49.5, but that'll do it for this week, college football picks and preview. Nick, any other plays that you want to get out before we head out? We touched on all the big games pretty much, and we got kickoff in about a little less than an hour between Louisville and Miami to start us off.
Yeah, nothing off the top of my head, really. I really do like who we already touched on it before, but I really like it. The over in the Alabama game. I think that one's going to be my favorite play. But we already touched on that. So a play that we didn't really touch on, I think I'm going to go with Washington plus 4.5 against Michigan. I really like that Washington team. We touched on it before. Devin Williams and I forget his first name, Boston on the outside. Absolutely insane duo. I'm a little lower on Michigan. I was a little lower on Michigan heading into the year. They kind of proved me wrong. They look pretty good. But I'm going to go Washington there as an away dog there.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week. College football picks and preview here on Pick Swap Media. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Enjoy the games. Have a great weekend, and we will talk next week.